Definition. What is a conservative?
Conservatives, as I understand them, are people who are aware of the fact that they've inherited something good. A social order, a political system, a culture, and a legal tradition, and they want to hold on to it. And that's what it means to be a conservative, wanting to conserve things. But they know they also have to make compromises to do that. But for them, the actual existing order is important.
That's where you start from.
Yeah, and the recognition that it's much easier to destroy things than to create them.
Okay, so why are so many journalists of the left?
Because it's much easier to be against things than for them. To be against things, you just have to point out their faults and then say, we want the alternative. You don't have to define the alternative. Whereas if you're actually defending existing things, you're in a much more difficult position. And journalists find that difficult. They have to acquaint themselves with a bit of history, acquaint themselves with what has happened when people have tried to live without, the legal order that they've inherited and so on.
And of course it's more boring, I guess, as a journalist. It doesn't make good copy to be for what's already there.
Exactly. It is all about excitement in the end.
Now, is there a reason why the left is particularly strong in the state media, your BBC, our ABC? For example, our ABC doesn't have a single conservative heading any of its main current affairs shows.
It's a very interesting question. I think, in general, obviously state employees are more likely to be in favour of a big state than a small one, so they're more likely to defend politicians who are in the business of funding people out of the central government, so that would explain some of it. But it's not only that. I think it is in order to make a career in something, a big institution like the BBC, you've got to stand out, and it's much easier to stand out by being rude about things and amplifying your disagreements than by showing that you accept something.
Well, let's go to last Monday's Q&A, but first some background. Q&A claims its audience is balanced, although they always sound hostile to conservatives. Same on Monday. The ABC said nearly half were coalition voters and most of the rest were Labor. In fact, many were these socialists and their supporters, and two got chosen at the start to ask their questions. Both abused Education Minister Christopher Pyne for wanting to make them pay more for their degrees.
My name's Tom, I'm from Socialist Alternative. That's a lie. I'm actually quoting you.
Why don't we let the Minister answer your question?
Well, can you do that?
Well, I actually haven't been given the opportunity to do so.
Go on, I'm giving you an opportunity.
Okay, guys, you're doing yourself no favours.
And then the rest shut down the debate completely, forcing the ABC off air for several minutes. Roger, a lot of sympathisers, a lot of people to the left have said, relax, this is just democracy at work, is it?
Well, of course it is in one respect, that in undemocratic countries you couldn't ever find anybody demonstrating like that. They'd be taken away and arrested straight away. It is one of the good things of our institutions that we don't overreact to this kind of interruption. But of course, people who want to stop argument, and in particular to shut up people with whom they disagree, are not contributing to the democratic process. They are of course, bringing it to a stop.
Well, the Socialists, the Alternative, also try to invade a private function we both spoke at on Friday. Now, the abuse and the shouting, is that just students getting excited in their cause, or is this intimidation, is the expression of force and shutting people down, is that, in fact, the cause? Are they
experience in England? It's always been organised leftist forces that have done this. And at a certain time, I couldn't speak in universities in Britain because there would always be this welcome committee who was determined to shut me up and perhaps also use violence against me. And I think there is a reason for this, which is that the left-wing position defines itself as oppositional. It's against things. It has a vague, abstract idea of some things it's in favour of, like equality or liberation or whatever, but never bothers to define that. But it knows very clearly that it's against this thing here now, and so it amplifies its own hatred of that thing by getting together in a group and thinking, and entertaining these self-righteous thoughts. We are absolutely together in this, and we're going to go against those people and shut them up, and we're right to do so.
Well, you're quite right. We've never seen Conservatives disrupt Q&A, but we have seen a supposedly anti-war protester throw his shoes at former Prime Minister John Howard. What is it with the left and violence? You say they get excited and all that, but the force, the shutting down of debate, even something like the BDS, the boycott and divestment movement to shut down Israeli academics, etc. What is it with the force, the left and violence?
Yeah, well, there is a sense of the weakness of their position underneath all this, that they are never able to define exactly what that great society that they're going to produce will be like. And in order to prevent discussion of this, they concentrate only on the present evil, you know, and they do see things in moral terms. The person who they're attacking is not someone who disagrees with them. He's someone who's evil and therefore doesn't have the right even to disagree. And that means that there are other emotions being animated than purely the dispassionate, rational emotions.
Is it a part too that, for example, Conservatives tend to be individualists, or if you've got an individualist philosophy, all you want to do is be left alone. If you're a collectivist, you want to do good to others, and that requires often to force them to do what you think is good.
Absolutely. There is a moralising and self-righteous streak which originates in good things, in compassionate feelings often, but doesn't have any patience with the things that stand in its way. And this is the reason why, when leftist governments get in power, they very often do go in a totalitarian direction. They start shutting down freedom of speech. They start actually trying to control institutions and to make sure that things will remain like this forever.
Roger Scruton, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.